All right, so today we do have Bitcoin coming down. Looks like we got a little bit of PPI volatility, as well as we do have CPI tomorrow. So let's jump into the Bitcoin price action to prepare for that big inflation data we're going to be getting here soon. All right, so starting off here, we have this upwards trend, parallel channel sort of deal. We can go ahead and actually pull this out. If I don't include that as a deviation, it actually lines up pretty well with these lows and highs. So we have kind of accepted back within this channel. That's something to be watching. We did get like a fake break to the upside, but that is not to say that we are bearish because we did not sweep these highs up here, right? We are still just building liquidity at this level. There are still so many stops up here that need to get swept. So one of two things is either going to happen, right? We're either going to, trade in here and go ahead and just go straight for it, or potentially, we do have some sweep levels down in here. I posted in the Discord levels to the downside to be watching for. Since we are getting PPI tomorrow, there could be some volatility, and I wouldn't be surprised if we break down to the downside to fully flush the long side before ripping up to the upside, right? So I wouldn't be too worried if we do, breakdown. But just based on what the S&P is doing, which I'll cover at the end of this video, I actually don't think any of those levels to the downside will get swept, and I do expect Bitcoin to head up here very shortly, as well as we still have some extremely poor highs sitting at that 63.5 level. So that's going to get swept at some point. It's just a matter of time. Coming out to the daily time frame, you can see that daily EMA once again is just giving us a lot of resistance, but we didn't sweep these highs, so still bullish. And if we zoom out here even further, you can see all of these lines I've put in the chart all the way back to the summer of 2023. What are these? These are CPI days. So essentially every red line is when CPI came in hot, above expectation. Every green line is when it came in cold, below expectation. White is neutral, at expectation. You'll also see like this has red in the middle of the white line, or these have like red on the outside. Essentially, like these would be neutral core CPI, whereas this is hot core CPI, neutral, normal CPI. So the reason I went through this is to try to find any correlation between, CPI numbers and price action the following weeks. And the conclusion I came out to was there is really no correlation. As you can see here, when CPI came in cold on both core and regular, it was pretty 50-50, as well as when it came in neutral, it was also pretty 50-50, and then when it came in hot, it was also pretty 50 on what price action was going to do, and this is going back to July. So yeah, I don't think there is going to be a big correlation to, whatever those numbers come in and what price will do the following weeks. I think it's very similar to a Fed interest rate day where it's just going to be a big leverage play, and they will swing liquidity in whatever direction makes the most sense on a liquidity basis. And that's why I put those levels in the Discord. If we were going to go jump over to what I'm talking about in Trading Light here, you can see these are the liquidity levels. So if it's going to be a liquidity game, we can expect, potentially one of these levels to the downside to get swept, and potentially some of these levels to the upside to get swept. So, we have value area low sweep. You can see that's this volume value area over here on the right. So a deviation outside of that range sweeping this low could make sense. That's like our first downside level. This upper sweep level is again where all those poor highs are, and that would be like value area high sweep. If I were to take the same thesis, whatever, that's terrible handwriting, but you get the point. So essentially, the volume range could get swept in either direction for that CPI, as well as we do have single prints down here. That's that fast price action. We do still have, some hourly single prints that were left behind from this low. So could sweep this, grab those single prints, and that would be that, clean out the imbalances there. Next levels would just be liquidity. These are just some previous lows where there's going to be a lot of stops, and it could structurally make sense to sweep that. And then of course you got the macro sweep, full sweep, taking out all of your leverage from this entire range. And I think the most likely thing to happen is we stay up in here, right? If I were to bet, I would say we hold these lows as good, right? I don't think we're going to break them. If we do, again, I don't think it's the end of the world as long as we don't go up higher first. I definitely could see this getting swept though, right? One of these levels getting swept wouldn't be the most surprising thing ever, just because I do know these lows were made by retail on Binance. You can see here, someone was putting in walls. Although I will say when this wall got filled, I was actually watching it live, and this order kept stacking on. So it started off as 500 Bitcoin, and as price was filling it, he kept adding to the wall. It almost looked like a bot. So I think a bot was consistently maintaining a 500 Bitcoin long wall. Like no matter how much it got filled, he just kept adding on to that wall, holding price above, and you can see it it continued to hold as like a spoof afterwards. So this seems more like a bot to me, like, like an actual market maker holding price. So then this low actually might hold, and that algo might just continue to bring up price. You will see here, like this is a super clean failed auction, 194 Bitcoin being shorted compared to 1 Bitcoin long position, and price was not able to accept right there at the peak of low of that wick. So that is a really solid failed auction at this low. I mean, that could be it, right? We don't have to sweep any of this stuff. It's just some levels to watch out for during CPI. There's a good chance, we form a range to the top side, and then during CPI, all we do is sweep this before, ripping to the upside and sweeping all your topside liquidity. So yeah, so I mean, we're in the middle of a range. There's a bunch of different possibilities of what could happen. In general, when we have these big news days, I tend to just not recommend trading the markets whatsoever. Just sit back, relax, eat some popcorn, watch the price volatility, and then afterwards, price will then choose which direction it wants to go. You should already be in a position before you have the CPI day, or you should be getting into a position after all that leverage is cleaned out with the volatility and all that good stuff. If we do go ahead and look at what PPI was today, you can see it came in hot, 0.5% compared to the forecasted 0.2 and 0.3, PPI and core PPI numbers. As we discussed just from back testing, like, does it really matter? No, like, it's not really going to affect price in the medium term, but it could show a trend that inflation is still quote unquote sticky, right? Where it's not really going away quite yet, which would push off those Fed rate cuts. And that is actually bullish, because when the Fed cuts rates, that marks the top normally. So we could definitely see those rate cuts being pushed off till November or December, which is what I've been hoping to see. So, that's just what I'm looking for there. Jumping out here now to my levels chart, we can see currently price is struggling with this midpoint of that bear flag, as well as weekly value area low. So this is a level we're going to want to watch in here very locally, right? If price can reclaim above value area low, that's going to be bullish. And then you want to, watch these volume levels, right? If you can start reclaiming these and get within this, like low volume gap within here, right? Like, that's where you could see us just squeeze straight up. Right, so like that's where all your volume is below this level. You clear above it, you could go extremely fast back to the upside, especially since we have already swept through right here. We already swept into that fair value gap and rejected once. So a secondary sweep into this range is likely not to fail, right? It's less likely that we go test top trend and fail once again, because we already did it. So that wick theoretically should hold, right? Hopefully you could kind of understand that. I know that was a lot of lines there, but I guess the main point is like, hey, if we can reclaim above this, like if this isn't going to turn into resistance and we can reclaim, then that's extremely bullish. If this were to turn into resistance, then you're looking to sweep these lower levels, right? Down here, or potentially, grab that single print from before, fair value gap, that sort of thing. And then, like those other levels we were talking about, but these are more likely in my opinion. But as we discussed, that failed auction was really clean on this last low. So this actually does have a really good chance to hold here. I should have covered this at the beginning, but we have a hidden 1 hour bullish divergence. We had one up here that I talked about in my last video. Higher highs on price with lower highs on RSI. That did not actually play out, which kind of surprised me. Normally after vectoring out of a range like this, usually that holds and we just like rip to the upside. But even coming down here now, we are able to hold a higher low on price, whereas the RSI is lower low, right? So this indicates absorption essentially, right? There's more selling pressure, but price is holding higher highs, which means there are actually more buyers stepping in here, absorbing that selling pressure. So yeah, that's really good to see. We're still maintaining a hidden bullish divergence on the hourly time frame. And if we do go over to the grayscale, Bitcoin trust chart, which we were talking about in the last video about how it had a gap, we did go ahead and fill that gap, most of the gap. You only have to fill these gaps 50% of the way for it to be valid. We have gone ahead and done that. So yeah, filling this is another good sign, and we have made, like a small gap to the upside now on the Bitcoin trust. So like, hey, now upside is more likely to go ahead and grab that. But CME, there's no gaps in CME, so this is less important. Like I mentioned in my last video, like we didn't really have to fill this, but the fact that we did, the fact that these gaps do look like they're getting filled is something to take note of. Jumping over to the dollar now, This is something that also recently just had a big dump, so that's really good to see. You know, we have a clear rejection off of this trend, and we are now looking to come down here on the dollar to some of these lower levels, potentially all the way to your range low down here at around 100, and that's where you get the more bull case for Bitcoin. That's what I'm hoping happens, and that's actually what I kind of expect to happen, right? The fact that we have already lost this, and we've already tested the value area high once, another test down here, probably more likely to break under and, you know, go hunt for the range low, sending Bitcoin to six figures. So dollar's looking really good over here on the S&P. That back test has confirmed, and we have shot up off that top trend. So yeah, S&P looks extremely good right now, and it does look like we are going to close the day above those highs. So yeah, as long as we don't just like instantly sweep back under and make a swing fail of those highs, that looks bullish. That looks extremely bullish. Target is all-time highs. Let's see if we can bust through all-time highs with conviction, or if it's going to, you know, swing fail and then that's going to be the top. But so far so good on the S&P. Everything on the charts is shaping up real nicely. I think the only reason we got that, you know, drop on Bitcoin was just some PPI volatility, but all your liquidity is still to the upside, and at the end of the day, I'm still expecting that 74K to be the target, and I fully expect we do send for those all-time highs on Bitcoin after CPI tomorrow. Just watch out. I would not be trading today or tomorrow, because you are going to get big liquidity swings trying to stop out all those positions before heading up higher. Make sure to go join my Discord. Links in the description down below. Trying to build a community of smart crypto investors and traders. I also update you guys with technical analysis and that sort of thing in a more timely manner than the YouTube videos. So yeah, links in the description for that. But with that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.